Good evening and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Eugene Chan. Our guest tonight is Financial Secretary Paul Chan. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Eugene.
As the Financial Secretary, you have gave us the budget early in February.
Yes.
And then in May, the economic report for the first quarter of 2021. And we have now been through to the second quarter. The question we want to ask tonight is the worst over for Hong Kong's economy amidst the COVID epidemic? Paul, in your economic report, our GDP has risen by 7.9% from a year ago, ending the 1.5-year recession. And the unemployment rate has come down slightly to 6.8% from 7.2% previously. Other economic activities, such as retail and restaurant receipts, have also gone up.
True.
Some say that the most dangerous time of our worst economy is over. Do you agree?
Well, the outstanding performance in this first quarter, on the one hand, is because of the very robust export performance. And also at the same time, the very low base last year. We have observed that into the second quarter, the economic recovery momentum has been sustained.
Okay.
Export growth by about 28%.
Okay.
And also private consumption gone up. F&B sector improving, so we expect the second quarter will also register a strong economic performance. As to the unemployment rate, it has come down to about 5.5%,
okay,
back to about a year earlier.
Okay.
But at the same time, we are also conscious of the fact that in certain sectors, the hard-hit sectors during the COVID-19 period are still quite difficult. For example, the tourism industry, people in the cost boundary, transportation. So we still need to stay very vigilant to control the COVID-19 situation. And on the other hand, continue to provide support to the economy, such as rolling out the consumption voucher scheme.
Right. Financial Secretary, as you said, some of these figures are better than expected, to our surprise in a way. Do you expect this to continue, or have we really turned the corner?
Well, I think we have turned the corner.
Okay.
But on the other hand, in order to further sustain the economic growth, we have to control the epidemic on the one hand, and on the other hand, working very hard to provide momentum to speed up the economic recovery. At the moment, the tourism industry is still closed. Cross-boundary tourism cannot be resumed. So that affects private consumption, that affects the F&B sector. But on the other hand, we are trying to stimulate local consumption and devising different means to sustain this economic recovery.
So, Financial Secretary, do you have any preview figures for us, say for the second quarter of the actual economic report? Do you have anything like that for us tonight?
Well, we have a schedule to follow in terms of publication of the factors, the figures. But on the other hand, we are reviewing the whole year economic growth. It is quite likely that although in February, when we released the budget, we forecast the economic growth to be 3.5% to 5.5%. Now, with the better than expected performance and assuming we are able to continue to control the pandemic situation and provide the needed stimulus to the economy, we will be able to perform better than those forecast in the budget.
Right, so we look forward to seeing those reports in due course. So, Financial Secretary, I mean, due to the COVID epidemic, we do have a slower economic activities. We do have subsequent relief measures and all the work that the government has support our community. I read in your budget speech that all these have made our fiscal reserves dropping sharply in 2 years from the equivalent of 23 months of government expenditure to 30 months. Then you also went on to say the operating deficit for 2021 and 22 will be more than 140 billion, while the operating deficit for the remaining 4 years will range from 22.4 billion to 40.7 billion. So you're telling us our fiscal reserve is going to be further eroded. Does this worry you?
Well, you know, during this unprecedented situation, the pandemic situation, we have to be bold in terms of providing the much really needed support to the community. This year, the budget deficit would be in the order of slightly above 100 billion.
Okay.
But at the same time, we explore different avenues to increase our revenue. Say, for example, the increase in stamp duty.
Okay.
We are also looking at government expenditures to find room for savings and rationalizations. And at the same time, going into the next 4 years, we are going to issue green bonds.
Okay.
Yeah, in 5 years' time, we issue green bonds for an aggregate amount of over 175 billion Hong Kong dollar to finance our infrastructure projects. And, you know, internationally, there will be a global minimum tax.
Okay.
So the international tax landscape is going to change.
Yes.
That may bring additional revenue to the government.
Okay.
At the same time, we have to maintain our competitiveness. So by bringing back the investment income in the future fund over the next 5 years, this year I brought back about $25 billion. By bringing back the investment income in the future fund in the order of about $100 billion, plus the issuance of the green bonds, give us the breathing space to work out in the coming few years, to work out financing the expenditure of the government in a sustained way.
Right. Financial Secretary, very happy to hear you've got plans ahead for us. But Hong Kong being a small and open economy and a relatively narrow tax base, how long, I know you don't have the crystal ball, how long do you think we can recover our strong fiscal reserve we once can be proud of?
Well, our current level of fiscal reserve is still very healthy.
Right.
About 13 months government expenditure. Accumulate fiscal reserve in itself is not an objective.
Okay.
It is to build up a reasonable level of cushion to tie us through during difficult times.
Which is right now, yes.
Yeah, which is right now. But on the other hand, we have to use these public resources wisely to invest into the future and to provide a much needed relief to those who need it.
So, Paul, let's move on to what you've just mentioned, the consumption voucher scheme that you mentioned in your budget speech in February. And so far, really have to congratulate you. We have 6 million have registered before the 1st of August deadline. Yeah. You must be pleased.
Yeah, thank you.
I must bring some other community events to you, the view to you, that they're asking, why has it taken so long for it to roll out? It's 5 months. I mean, if somebody really needs the money, 5 months is a long time to them. So what is your reply to them?
Well, you know, the electronic consumption voucher is a new initiative in the Hong Kong context. So we need to work with the different operators, the store value operators, to work out the computer systems and prepare ourselves for the smooth launch of the consumption voucher. And also very importantly, during this process, we have actively engaged the community and our legislators to make sure that the scheme to be rolled out, meeting largely the expectations of the people.
Okay.
So we have been trying very hard. And before the consumption voucher scheme, which is targeted at providing stimulus to revive the economy, as to providing relief to the people. Under the anti-epidemic funds and other government measures, we have providing the supports across different sectors and across different strata of the community.
Have you ever considered, when I was in the makeup room, I was asking my makeup artist, they were asking, why don't you roll up all the $5,000 in one go instead of having 2 separate payments? Because $2,000 nowadays doesn't do very much.
Well, the needs of the community is very diverse. And actually, our people are in very different economic situations. During the consultation period, we have heard the views of giving the money upfront so that if they want to, they can use it to buy big ticket items.
Yes.
But on the other hand, we have also heard the voice of the grassroots citizens about the need of providing them with a longer period to spend the money, and with the money to be rolled out in a spaced manner. So I think we have been trying very hard to strike a proper balance.
Okay. Right, so before we go to a break, I'm going to ask you one very simple question. Is that I'm sure one of your intention of rolling out this voucher scheme is to make our population embracing the electronic payment system. Are you happy with the progress so far? Are we ready?
Well, electronic payment is very important, particularly in the retail sectors. This is something we have to push.
Okay.
Since we announced the selection of the 4 operators in April, till the end of June, we have over 28,000 merchants signing up for the use of these different type of
are embracing
operators.
the new idea, yes.
And for the general public, over 1.2 million new users for these electronic payment systems. So I think we have making good progress.
The next one I'm going to ask you is about the opening of borders. See, Hong Kong basically has been closed for 18 months now. And many one of us are keen to reconnect, not only with the mainland, but with the rest of the world. In your recent interview, you just said this process cannot be rushed. And how much longer can we open up? Very simple question.
Yeah, we have been working very hard in liaising with the mainland authorities as well as the Macau authorities with a view to resume the traveling between Hong Kong and the mainland and Macau as soon as possible. We are all looking at the epidemic situation, the vaccination situation, and we are working very hard. As to the international traveling, we have classified the different places by reference to the risk of COVID-19, and from that, allow certain traveling to be resumed, subject to quarantine period and quarantine requirements. So we are still monitoring the situation, and we urge the members of the public who haven't get vaccinated yet, please do get yourself vaccinated, because this is to give yourself the best protection. And on the other hand, help us to have an enabling environment to restart the traveling between Hong Kong and the mainland and the rest of the world.
Paul, as of a few days ago, only 1/3 of our population have been fully vaccinated. This is really an improvement since we had Mr. Matthew Cheung on our show talking about vaccination like 2 months ago. But there's still a long way to go to our goal of 70%. And some experts recently have said that we have to get 90% vaccinated to get a herd immunity. Will this kind of slow pace, taking months, going to delay our economic recovery, or the recent success we have in the recovery? Do you think it will be affected?
Well, so far over 5 million doses have been administered. About 43% of our population, that is close to about 3 million, got the first jab. And as you said, over 30% have got both jabs. So our target at the moment is to achieve 70% by the end of September. Looking at the practices internationally, with this vaccination rate, with the picking up in the vaccination by the population, we are better prepared on a vaccinated basis to relax the traveling, as well as relaxing the quarantine requirements in appropriate circumstances. So we are very hopeful that, number one, we think this is the right direction to go. Secondly, with the improved pickup rate in terms of vaccination, we are better prepared to reopen the traveling between Hong Kong and the mainland and the rest of the world, and providing sustained stimulus to our economic recovery.
So, Paul, I understand this is the direction we're moving. And I was just reading a recent article in the SAMP. They suggested that if we keep pursuing the goal of zero COVID-19 infections, we're in the danger of falling behind as a global financial center. Then some other articles say that we should learn to live with the virus. What do you think?
Yeah, we have been managing the epidemic situation in Hong Kong by and large quite well by any international standard. We'll continue to remain vigilant and stay on high alert. This is important not just for international traveling, but also for protecting the health of our members of the public and allowing people go to their normal life. So we, under the able leadership of the CE, we will continue to work very hard in containing, in fighting the COVID-19.
But FS, I'm sure you and I have read from the news that look at the UK, look at the US, or I mean, they are not following that direction. I think they're trying to live with the virus. So it all depends on our borders, all depends on our quarantine, whether we pick up any variant infections. How long can we sustain this this goal of maintaining zero COVID in our community? Is that realistic?
We are actively monitoring the situation on a global basis and taking stock of our own experience and refine our approach. So going forward, there may be modifications and variations. It is always a tug of war. I mean, on the one hand, you have to look at the public health consideration. On the other hand, you have to look at the economic implications of continuing closing the border. And thirdly, you have to look at the daily life of our people because sustained social distancing measures would have a lot of impact, not just on the daily life of people, but also the mental health of individuals. So this is always a tug of war, a very fine balancing act, and we have been monitoring the situation very carefully and do it in a measured, prudent manner.
Right. Paul, let's move on to something bigger, wider. I'm sure the viewers will want to know. I'm sure all of us have aware that the increasing geopolitical tension between the United States and our country. And this has stepped up recently with a warning issued by Biden to the U.S. businesses in Hong Kong. And then the U.S. sanctions on our Chinese officials in Hong Kong, followed by our counter-sanctions by our central government. They've all been in the news. In your blog, you presented some figures showing continued strength in our banking and renminbi business, security industry, asset and wealth management, as well as the insurance sector. I mean, they're very encouraging. So are you suggesting we don't need to feel threatened by the situation?
Well, interestingly, as regards the business advisory issued by the Biden government, the American Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong has issued a statement reaffirming their trust and confidence in doing business in Hong Kong. They said that the Hong Kong remains a critical and vibrant facilitator of trade and financial flow between the East and the West. And we have the best developed infrastructure. We have the most internationally recognized commercial law system, as well as the best digital infrastructure. So for people on the ground operating in Hong Kong, no matter it is American business or European business, they know that in Hong Kong, this is the best place to do business and providing the best access to the mainland market. But stepping back, looking at the bigger picture, the tension between the US and China will remain. This will continue, and there will be ongoing competition. And we hope that these two largest economies, two big power, the difference between them would not cause a total breakdown in the relationship. So we have to live with this situation. Under these circumstances, there are risks and opportunities. As to the risk, as we have observed in the past 2 years, the tension between the US and China will cause uncertainty to global economy, will cause volatility in the global financial market. These uncertainties and volatility certainly will affect us. And as you mentioned, the US did have rolled out some sanction measures that would, in a way, sometimes cause concern about the financial stability of Hong Kong. If we have to remain vigilant and stay highly alert. But on the other hand, there are opportunities. Say, for example, Hong Kong's role as an international financial center particularly China's International Financial Center. Over the past year, IPO in Hong Kong, very vibrant.
Yes, we realize
the total amount raised last year is over 400 billion. This year, first half, another over 200 billion. So very vibrant, very active. Capital flow keep coming in. Our banking system remain very liquid, very strong. This is one, our role as international financial center. And given the tension between the US and China, the internationalization of renminbi will be very important. And we have seen the increase in the renminbi offshore pool in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong will play a very important role in the facilitation of the internationalization of renminbi. That would give us additional business as well.
Yes, Financial Secretary, I have to ask you at the last part of the show that you just talk about the multinational entities with the tax coming up. I mean, there's a recent decision at the G20 summit to set the minimum tax rate at 15%. Can you just tell the audience and the viewers what will be the impact of the decision in Hong Kong and what are the risks and opportunities very briefly?
Well, some people are concerned about whether this will hurt our competitiveness. Firstly, this only applies to large multinational group having a turnover, consolidated turnover of over euro 75 billion dollars. I mean, 750 million euro. SMEs will not be affected. As to the large corporates, our initial assessment is that given this minimum tax requirement, the Hong Kong government may be able to get additional tax revenue from the groups having their holding company in Hong Kong and operating internationally, not paying that kind of effective tax rate to contribute some additional tax dollars to us.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, for coming tonight. I mean, we have covered a lot of ground in just over 20 minutes. And I think your answer to our question we asked at the beginning of the show, is the worst over for Hong Kong's economy? Is a resounding yes, I'll take that. So thank you for joining us and see you next week. Good night.
Yeah, thank you.